Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Got Harem with Royal Kushina and All Girls Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. It was in the mid-afternoon, the sun was high over the sky, shining down upon the village of the Hidden Leaf. The sounds of joyful laughter could be heard floating through the air. At the Ninja Academy, the next year's class of graduates were situated in the outside yard. The children's parents celebrating the newly appointed ninja's accomplishments. It was a joyous occasion all around, mostly anyways. Sitting on a small wooden swing off to the side of the courtyard sat a short blonde boy. His body drifting back and forth as he looked longingly at the display going on before him. A mother kissing her daughter on the cheek, a father ruffling his son's hair as he smiled brightly at the boy. Another father tossing his son proudly into the air and catching him. They all looked so happy and proud of their children. The young boy in the swing, Naruto, could barely keep his eyes open. Watching all of them together, so happy of being with their family, it made that longing feeling feel so much deeper. When he opened his eyes again, Naruto took notice of a strange-looking woman wandering around the courtyard. She was wearing a plain gold-color kimono and her hair was tied back in a braided ponytail which flowed down her backside, her hair in the front draped down in front of her eyes. She had high cheekbones, big, brown eyes, and a rather aquiline nose. She looked to be around in her 30s. Though that wasn't strange in itself, it was the pale green hair and dark skin that made her noticeable in a crowd. And also the fact that her figure was fabulous, slim waist, rounded hips, full bosom, her very large, round, somewhat pendulous shape. Even with the kimono it was easy to see how shapely she is, causing many of the wives to smack their husbands from staring at her. She appeared to be looking through the crowd of children and parents. Most likely looking for her own somewhere. With a sigh, Naruto turned his gaze to his feet, barely able to touch the ground from his spot on the swing due to his short stature. Excuse me. Blinking as no one usually talks to him, Naruto looked up to see who was addressing him. To his surprise it was the green-haired woman. She was bent down at the waist, with her hands on her knees looking at him at eye level. Her head crooking to the side as she appeared to be examining him as if making sure he was the real one. Why yeah, Naruto asked wearily. Any and all experience with adults had taught him to be careful. They were always yelling at him or throwing stuff at him or chasing him away with brooms. The woman just continued to stare at him. Her green eyes squinting shut in a cattish look. After another moment, the woman smiled, gave a sharp nod, and stood up straight again. Can I ask you a question? The woman asked, walking around so that she was beside the blonde boy, looking out at the group of people in front of the school. Yeah, what? Naruto looked puzzled, as he stared up at the strange woman. Her gaze was directed at the crowd. Did she want him to find her child in the crowd or something? Why aren't you celebrating with the other children over there? She asked. Naruto could feel his throat tightening as he turned to look at his feet again. I didn't pass. He mumbled. The redhead looked surprised as she looked at him. You didn't pass. She indeed did look quite surprised. Why? Naruto really didn't want to get into this, especially with a complete stranger. But despite that, the fact that someone was actually paying attention to him completely overrode his embarrassment. I couldn't perform the final exam jutsu. The boy admitted. I failed. Blinking, the woman stared at him, wanting him to go on. I couldn't do a simple bushin, Naruto explained. Oh, I see. She replied. A moment of silence. What was she going to do? Laugh at him like all the other villagers? There was a short rustling behind him and then a surprised Naruto found himself sailing forward in the swing. When he came back, he looked up to see the woman holding onto the ropes. This is a very nice swing. She commented. I bet it's a lot of fun. Well yeah, Naruto replied, a smile creeping onto his face. It's my favorite. I bet it's a lot of fun having someone to push you. She added, giving the swing another push, sending Naruto forward again. Yeah. The boy's smile was growing wider now. Back and forth he went as she continued to push him, Naruto's earlier mood seemingly forgotten. So what are you going to do now? She asked suddenly. Bring the young boy out of his brief happy trance. What do you mean? Naruto asked, turning his head to look up at the red head. Now that you failed, are you going to try again? She asked, her tone sounding merely thoughtful. Well, of course. Naruto replied, a familiar fire returning to the blonde. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Do you think I'm going to let this stop me? The woman smiled. I'm glad to hear it, she replied, happy to see the same spirit in his heart as the woman she had grew up with. Why you are? This was a surprise. In all of his life, Naruto had never met anybody who had ever said anything encouraging like that to him. Well, except maybe for his academy teacher Iruka, but Iruka was also always yelling at him too. Of course. Who wouldn't want such a nice boy to succeed? The woman smiled brightly. As she leaned forward, a number of her greed locks fell in front of her and into Naruto's face. Brushing the green strands of hair out his face, Naruto stared up in awe at the strange woman. Who are you anyways? He finally asked. The woman looked somewhat taken aback and released her hold on the swing. My name is Setsuna Umido, she replied, giving him a warm smile. Your name is Setsuna? Naruto asked, jumping out of the swing to look at her. Well, thanks Setsuna. I'm definitely going to pass. One way or another. Just wait and see. That's very good. Setsuna smiles at the young boy. Well, I have to go. Make sure to look for me, Setsuna. Next time you see me, I'm gonna to be a full-fledged ninja of the leaf. Naruto proclaimed, before dashing off, waving the whole time until he was out of sight. Setsuna wore a bitter smile as she watched him go. It was, as she realized, much harder to tell him who he is than she had realized. But, why? Wouldn't it have been good if she had told him who his mother was and father? That he's the only heir of a powerful ninja clan and the prince of the land of metal in the far west, that he didn't have to put himself through all of this hard work to become a leaf ninja. Wouldn't he have been happy? Wouldn't he? But when she had stared into his eyes, she could see the spark shining in them, which were in his mother's eyes when she was around his age. She and Kiko were growing up together. Both she and Kiko had gone through the ninja school together. Her duty was to become the personal bodyguard of Kiko, as she was brought up to be exactly like the princess and train in using the body image jutsu that takes the body image of the person the user targets. She was to be Kiko's body double when she became queen. But the princess had other ideas. She had the dream of being a wandering ninja, going from one place to another without a care for the world. The life as a princess wasn't to her liking, as she wanted adventure before she became queen. That was what she had written in her letter to her mother before she ran away. Setsuna hopes that her friend found what she was looking for in the arms of the fourth Hokage of the Leaf. Unlike the rest of the clan, those born in the royal family don't have the anti-child seal place on them. While Setsuna was deep within her own thoughts, she hadn't noticed two women from the main crowd of people walk over to her. Blinking in surprise, the green-hair woman turned to look at the two. You must be new here, the first woman stated. Yes, I am, Setsuna replied carefully. She hadn't realized she stood out that much. But her clothes are the norm in the land of metal, but here she guessed was very unusually. It's understandable. We saw you talking to it, and thought you should be careful, the second woman explained. Excuse me. Setsuna looked puzzled. We're really not supposed to talk about it, the first continued, looking around carefully to make sure no one was listening, but be careful. That thing is a monster. If you're not careful, you might get killed. The sheer intensity of the glare that the two women received was so powerful that they both jumped back in surprise. And to their horror, their clothes fell apart as if they were cut with a blade, leaving them but in the middle of the street. Everyone stared at her as none of them saw her move from the spot she was standing at. Setsuna left without another word. In one of the inns of the village, Setsuna returned to the room she and her party had rented under the ruse of being travelers, it was already nightfall when she made it back to the inn. She had chosen 5 gold delmos for this mission as she didn't want to draw unwanted attention to themselves. The rest of the gold delmos are waiting orders from them outside of the village, keeping out of sight. Which was easy as they are all at S-rank kunoichis, and because of their bloodline they can maintain jutsus which hides them in plain sight. Rushuna Tendo, age 16 years old, the youngest of the group. Tall, with a slim, athletic figure. Her are large, at least for her age, but not as large as those of any of the other girls of the gold delmos. Her face was pretty, with a sweet, innocent look to it with blue eyes and a heart-shaped mouth. Her hair was long, blonde and wavy. She uses a jutsu that allows her to control fire, making it hotter and take shapes. She is armed with gloves with flint-covered fingertips. Once she snaps her fingers she can make the small spark into a roaring inferno. She is also skilled in using pressure points, locking her opponent bodies with the slightest touch. Mikan Kuranai, tall, thin, her skin very dark, but clear, her floor-length hair wavy, dark with a slight reddish cast. Her large well-formed, and plump projecting buttocks seem to have been bolted on to her thin frame. She possesses a skill passed down through her family which took 300 years to perfect, the Eisen-style armor cloth skill. It allows the user to transform any cloth into a living weapon or armor. She personally uses adamantium cloth. She also has explosive gauntlets which the blasts are focus in the front of the gauntlets when she forms her hands into a fist, leaving her hands unharmed. Then there's her sister Tuka Kuranai, her wavy, auburn hair reaching to the middle of her back. Like Carrie, her eyes were green, flashing with passion. Her fine skin was dusted with freckles, across her nose and cheekbones and the top of her bosom. Her figure seemed more voluptuous than her sister, with extremely large and a slim waist curving out to full, firm buttocks. Her weapon is sound waves produced from her gauntlets and from an odd accordion, piano object which operates by blowing air through the nose into it. Her vibrations can affect equilibrium as well as breaking down the cells of objects. Maya Yugina, a redhead who keeps her hair short, she is sleek, muscled, powerful and stood over 8 feet. Her legs were of special interest. They were the firm and taut legs of a fitness model or female track star. And like she likes to rub it in, she has the biggest burst line as she wears a custom-made bra to hold her H-cup-size chest. She uses a fighting move that's been pasted down in her family for generations ever since one of her great-grandmothers had married the monk who learned to use it. Normally when a person punches an object, resistance is made caused by the object. To make sure that this leftover power isn't wasted, the person will hit with the knuckles, then a second hit with the rest of the fist is made within 1/64th of a second, causing the object to shatter. And then there is the last member of the party, Soraya Unada. She was a beautiful doll, less than 5 feet tall, with large, a slim waist, gorgeous hips, all in proportion to her tiny size. Her almond-shaped eyes were big, and so dark as to be almost black. Her doll-like face was framed by straight hair, black, but with a reddish cast, parted in the middle, reaching to the middle of her round buttocks. She uses her small and light frame to her advantage, using a long cape that can take the form of large wings. She uses a wind jutsu to lift her into the air. With this she can glide through the air effortlessly and attack from high above. 1. Have you found the prince? Maya asks as she flips through the channels on the TV in their room. Yes, I have, Setsuna replied as she sat down on one of the chairs in the room. When will we make our move? Rushuna asks as she wants to get out of here before they're discovered. It's not that simple, Suzuna said. He has his heart set on becoming a leaf ninja. He won't willing go with us. You heard the queen, she wants him to be brought back with us, Mikan said. She wants him taken away from here, willingly or otherwise. I agree with my sister for once, Tuka said, backing up her sister, which she rarely ever does. She orders us to do this by any means. As long as he is unharmed, that is, Soraya reminded them. Rushuna can use a sleeping pressure point on him and we can carry him out of here before the ninjas here can stop us. And what makes you think that he won't run away like his mother when he sees a chance to? Setsuna said to the younger kunoichis in the room, I see the same look in his eyes as his mother. If we force him, he will not accept being held against his will. He has to freely come with us, or the same thing that happened 18 years ago with his mother will happen again. And we won't have another chance of doing this again. I have already confirmed that the adults of the villages only see the prince as a demon. We have to convince him to accept the fact that he will never be accepted by this village, but for that to happen we will have to do things slowly to gain his trust. I have already taken the first step when I met him in front of the school, after he failed the final. Then all we have to do is make sure that we be there for him when he falls to catch him, Mikan said to all present, who all nodded in response. This is the most important mission they have ever been given, one that they cannot fail. I'm going to keep an eye on him. Saraya, come with me in case I need the rest of you, Setsuna said as she got up and headed for the door. All right, Saraya said as she followed the leader of the group out the door. Later that night, Setsuna was having flashbacks as she raced through the woods. She still couldn't believe that Naruto is acting just like his mother, as she had stolen a forbidden scroll containing powerful jutsus when she was told she couldn't learn them. Setsuna had to find him before one of those enraged leaf ninjas found and killed him. That's why she was out here in this forest, searching desperately with no clue as to the young prince's whereabouts. When the Hokage had first gathered the search teams, she and Saraya had remained in the shadows to watch, using a powerful jutsu to hide them from the ninjas in the room. When they had saw the jutsu Naruto used to knock the Hokage out, they had almost blown their cover as they had to hold in their laughter when they saw the face the old man made. She had felt so enraged and helpless as she saw the reactions of the group of ninjas. Rage for the hated words they dared to speak about her friend's son, the only prince of her land, and helplessness because there was nothing she could do about it. If she attacks them, they would learn the truth about Naruto's mother and he would become a powerful political tool to them. His grandmother would pay a heavy price to have her grandson brought back to her. But one of those ninjas had caught her attentions. Iruka wasn't it. He was Naruto's teacher, if she had read the report on Naruto's life here correctly. The look in his eyes, he must have known where Naruto was. And so she had followed him, out into the darkness of the forest. She had already sent Saraya to bring the others to the forest, as she would leave a trail for them to follow her. Unfortunately, Setsuna had to make sure she didn't run too fast, as she would be detected by the leaf ninja. She had lost sight of Iruka a couple of times as she needed to keep back from using any of her real speed, and wait for other leaf ninjas to pass by as they look for Naruto. She just hopes that no one else would detect the scent trail she's leaving for the others to follow. So now she was running through the great forest of Konoha without any idea as to where to go. Only on the brief chance that she would find the prince before any of the other ninjas find them. But it turns out for once, fate was on her side. As the Delmo Kunoichi ran through the forest, a sudden crashing sound caught her attention. Skidding to a halt, Setsuna craned her head upward just in time to see Naruto with what must be the forbidden scroll in his arms slam full force into his teacher, Iruka. Naruto! Setsuna gasped in shock. What was he doing? Naruto! Iruka muttered, getting back to his feet. How did you know wasn't Iruka? With a poof of smoke, Iruka was gone, replaced with an unfamiliar white-haired ninja. There is a sinister look in his eyes. Simple. Naruto smirked, leaning heavily against a tree. Because I am. With a second poof of smoke, Naruto was revealed to be the real Iruka. In all of her worry, Setsuna found a moment to curse herself. Was she really off the ball with her worrying about Naruto that she couldn't even see through a simple jutsu illusion? Being careful not to alert the two to her presence, Setsuna carefully crept her way to hide behind one of the nearby trees. She kept her eyes fixed upon the two ninjas, making sure that neither one would spot her. She only looked away when she bumped into something as she crept behind a tree. Startled, she looked down to see none other than Naruto. A startled and utterly puzzled look on his face as he looked at her. In his tightly gripped hands was the forbidden scroll. Setsuna, Naruto was about to speak when Setsuna put a hand to her lips in a quieting motion. She then looked back around the tree at Iruka and the other ninja. Sonoble. Mizuki sneered at the wounded ninja, to save your parents' murderer. And for what? What happens if we let him live? Then maybe the scroll is safe from a scumbag like you. Iruka replied. He had so many wounds from the earlier shuriken assault, his body felt like it could barely move. But Naruto was okay, that's all that mattered. Naruto and I are two of a kind, you know. Mizuki said, stepping closer. With that scroll, I can attain the same kind of limitless power. What? Iruka asked. Mizuki couldn't be talking about. The demon within hungers for that kind of power. Mizuki exclaimed. You were right to fear him. Naruto couldn't believe it. So it was true then. His teacher really held him in contempt. The tears were starting to come to his eyes now. The scroll in his hands gripped bone-crushingly tight to his body. So it was true then. What Mizuki had said earlier. You are the nine-tailed demon fox who attacked Konoha 12 years ago. Haven't you always wondered why everyone always hated you? It all seemed to make such painful sense. All those years, all the glares, the scornful words. The feeling of complete loneliness. Get lost, you little brat. Don't go near that boy. He's nothing but trouble. He'll never amount to anything. It hurts so much, all of it. Just give up, you loser. You can't do it, can you? Now he understood. Now that you failed, are you going to try again? He blinked. Wait, those hadn't been words of scorn. This is a nice swing, I bet it's nice to have someone to push you. That woman, looking up, Naruto saw Setsuna staring down at him. Her eyes, they weren't filled with hatred, no. She was looking at him with sadness. Her hands were on his shoulders, holding onto him softly. Of course, who wouldn't want such a nice boy to succeed? No, she didn't hate him, unlike everyone else. You're right. Naruto could hear Iruka's voice. I do hate the fox. Setsuna's grip tightened on his shoulders. Iruka was about to say something else when a fireball flew out from the tree line hitting Mizuki. He screamed as he was set on fire, rolling on the ground to put out the flames before falling on the ground still. Iruka turned to where the fireball came from, thinking that one of the leaf ninjas had saved him, but instead of seeing a leaf ninja, he saw 5 women. All of them are wearing gold-colored mini dresses which just barely kept their underwear out of view. The top of their dresses have a hole cut right in the center of it, their bosoms are stretching the fabric of the dresses to the ripping point, and all of them are staring angrily at him. One of them is really tall, over 8 feet, and heavily muscled. Another is really short, under 5 feet, with a black cloak wrapped around her body. 2 of the women look like sisters, one armed with a long cloth and the other an accordion. The one in front has gloves on and has flames coming out of her hands. Who are you? Iruka asked the newcomers. He couldn't help but notice that all of them have figures that put to shame all of the women in the village. You're not going to live long enough to find out, the woman with the accordion said as she squeezed her instrument, causing a sound wave to hit him. Iruka screamed as his eardrums burst from the sound before he blacked out. But just before he blanked out, he saw Naruto coming out from behind a tree in the corner of his eyes, with a woman with the same busty build behind him. And he's still holding the scroll in his arms. Was past midnight as an armor-plated carriage raced through the streets of Konoha. The carriage is being pulled by a team of 6 horses, with Mikan in the driver's seat with Saraya sitting next to her. The horses pulling the carriage were not only fast, but they had tremendous stamina, galloping tirelessly through the deserted streets. The queen had spared no expenses in equipping the gold Delmos in retrieving her grandson from the hidden leaf village. Kushina and Tuka are kneeling on top of the carriage to fight off any attackers. Setsuna and Maya are riding inside with their precise cargo. Once we're in sight of the gate, Maya, you'll have to make a hole for us, Mikan shouted to her teammate inside the moving carriage. You got it, the powerhouse of the team shouted from inside. All right girls, it looks like we got some company coming up from both sides. Kushina shouted as she spots leaf ninjas jumping on the rooftops of houses as they try catching up the fast-moving carriage. Well then let's hit the music. Tuka shouted as she started playing with her accordion, sending blast of sound at the ninjas following them. The sound wave caused the ninjas following them to fall off the rooftops as they lost their balance or their ears started bleeding. And this should keep them busy. Rushuna said as she snaps her fingers, making sparks that expanded and taking form into birds made out of fire. Knowing that she has to keep the ninjas from following, sent her firebirds flying into houses, setting them on fire. The ninjas following them quickly stopped chasing. They quickly started to work on putting out the fires and helping the people out of the houses that are in flames. Look out! Soraya shouted, pointing in front of them, using her sharp eyes to see around them. Her family has eyes that are like the Hyuga family but doesn't change the way their eyes look, and had the ability to detect trace amounts of energy trails or auras by ninjas who are using jutsus. Standing on a roof at an intersection is a large group of ninjas taking aim at them. Got this one, Mikan said as she uses her family jutsu to make the long cloth wrapped around her arms and neck to make a shield over the horses and carriage as the ninjas started throwing shurikens at them. The shurikens bounced harmlessly off of the cloth shield as the carriage raced through the intersection, going down the main street of the village, heading straight for the main gate. We got runners right behind us. Rushuna shouted as several ninjas are racing after the speeding carriage. She and Tuka open fire on the ninjas, picking them off as they race after them. With the sound and fire attacks being thrown at them, the ninjas couldn't throw shurikens at the carriage as the sound waves made them unable to aim straight. With the burning fury of youth, I will stop you. A man in green and big eyebrows shouted as he leapt onto the side of the moving carriage. He tried opening the door of the carriage before he could. It was flung open as a huge muscular woman popped out. Sorry, no hitchhikers. She shouted as she slams her fist into his face, sending him flying backwards, causing two of the ninjas' runners to trip on his rolling body as the rest continue to follow chase after them. These guys are starting to bother me, Maya said as she leans down and punch the ground, causing the ground behind the carriage to shoot upward, causing the ninjas to lose their balances that handles them. Here comes another wave of them, Tuka said as she sees some more leaf ninjas on the roofs of the houses around them. I'll handle this one, Soraya said as she jumps into the air, spreading out her cape wings, using the speed of the carriage to give her the updraft needed to take flight. The leaf ninjas were taken by surprise as one of the women on the speeding carriage began flying like a bird. She rose up into the air far above the range of any of their attacks, giving her a bird's eye view. Soraya began using lightning jutsus, sending down bolts of lightning raining down on the ninjas racing after the carriage. They couldn't do anything as she's too high up to attack, and those who did clones jutsus found that she could tell which one was the real one as she aims her lightning bolts on the ones who tried. The leaf ninjas couldn't believe the amount of power these women have as they easily kept them from overtaking the carriage. They seemed to not be running out of charka anytime soon as they kept throwing one powerful jutsu after another. One of the ninjas running after the carriage, a big fat guy, suddenly grew bigger than most of the buildings of the village, swinging a huge staff. But before he could stop the carriage, Rushuna created a giant dragon made out of fire as big as the giant leaf ninja. The living dragon made of living fire slams into the giant-sized ninja, causing him to burst into flames as his clothes caught on fire. He fell backwards as he returned back to his original size. Ninjas were already rushing over to him to put out the fire that's burning his flesh. We're in the clear now, Tuka shouted as they came up on the huge gate of the walled ninja village. Look out, Mikan shouted as she saw several ninjas jump onto the speeding carriage from the roof of one of the buildings. Three of them grab onto her and knocking the horse reins away from her. Using her cloth, she grabs the ninjas with her cloth, throwing them off of her. Tuka and Rushuna handled the two on top of the carriage, while Maya punched the two trying to get into the carriage off with punches to the jaws. That was easy, Rushuna said before she felt the carriage under her start to jerk a bit. Hey, watch your driving. That's what I'm trying to do, Mikan shouted back to her as she tries to grab the reins which had been knocked away from her grasp. She couldn't grab the reins as they fell out of her reach, leaving the carriage was now out of her control. Soraya, who was watching all of this from way up in the night sky, shot upwards, disappearing in the clouds. In front of the main gate. Here they come, a silver hair ninja said, wearing a mask and has his headband covering his left eye. He's talking to a woman with black hair and red eyes. I hope that Anko set the trap right, the red-eye woman said. You know her and making a blast. She knows what she's doing, the man said as he watches the carriage approaching them very fast. We still need to get Naruto out of there. Yes, in the state he is now it will be easy for those women whoever they are to turn him against us, the woman said. The third had told them about what he had seen in the forest earlier with Mizuki and Aruka. He has put every ninja in the village to work in finding the women who have somehow hidden themselves from the seeing orb. With Naruto and the forbidden scroll written by the fourth, those women couldn't be allowed to leave the village alive. We can't let Naruto be taken from this village, not after what his father did to save it, the silver-haired man said. Don't worry, they won't, the red-eyed woman said as she gave the sign for Anko to set off the bomb planted on the road, who's standing on top of a building. Let's show them they can't beat us leaf ninjas in our home field, Anko ginned as she flipped the switch on the bomb as the carriage passed over it. The blast from the bomb threw the carriage up before falling back down, breaking one of its wheels and freeing the team of horse pulling it. The carriage fell onto its side and slid along the ground as the momentum of the speed it was going at kept it going. The horses run down a side street as the carriage slid to the right of them. The two ninjas who were standing in the middle of the street jump onto the sliding carriage as the ninjas who were riding on it were either thrown off when the wheel broke or are holding on for dear life. The silver hair and red-eye ninjas took advantage of this as they flung open the door of the carriage, but looking inside the compartment they found only the redhead woman in the carriage and a large red wooden barrel with a burning fuse on it. High above the village, Allison Turner leant back in the padded pilot chair of the blimp airship, the scarlet rapier, rubbing her tired eyes and then running her fingers through her shoulder-length red hair. The beautiful pilot and first mate of the rapier was working the graveyard shift at the helm, so she was completely alone on the silent bridge of the ship. Allison crossed her long legs and leant back even further in the chair, completely at ease. She was dressed in a pair of black leather pants that were slung quite low on her shapely hips, the sides of her pink G-string visible, and a skimpy white halter top that had a plunging neckline showing plenty of the upper slopes of her big, plump. Red, as Allison was known to her friends, took a quick glance at the navigation panel of the ship off to her left, ensuring that the Scarlet Rapier was still on course and that the autopilot had not drifted them off. The Scarlet is a transport airship for the most important of cargo in the country of metal. They have been circling around the village of the leaf using the mist jutsus, giving them cover to hide their movements from the ninjas down below. She'd got the nickname for the obvious reason of her flaming scarlet hair. In fact, her name had originally been Big Red, in honor of her ample D-cup assets, but over the last few years it had been shortened to just Red. The lovely red-haired pilot gave a loud yawn, lifting one hand to cover her gaping mouth. 1. The village below suddenly lit up in flames as Rushuna started using her fire jutsu, setting some of the buildings of the village on fire. Then a giant appeared only to be knocked down by a dragon made out of flames. Red wondered what was happening down there as lightning bolts flash every now and then. Finally there was a huge explosion near the front gate of the village that lit the sky up as a fireball rose into the air. What in the world is happening down there? Red said to herself as the door of the control room opens, letting in the gold Delmo, Soraya inside, followed by the captain. Kim, possible captain of the Scarlet Rapier, was a big girl, about 5'9". She was dressed in a form-fitting white bodysuit that clung to every curve of her body. The white suit had a zipper running up the front that was currently pulled about halfway up, leaving the suit jutting wide open at her cleavage, her impressive E-cup thrusting out of the open material, pushed up by a lacy white brassiere. Her ample endowments are so large she made the fabric stretch its confines. She has a slim waist, and a great butt and legs. She is of a mixed race, with a lot more races mixed in her thanks to the fact that her family wanders around a lot before finding a husband and returning back to the village. Her hair is long, wavy, sun-streaked brown. She had a pretty face, with a nice mouth, high cheekbones, big, dark eyes, and a somewhat aquiline nose, evidence of her mixed heritage. Get the ship over to the top of the cliff with the faces on it on the double, Kim barked out, we have a prince to pick up. Right away, Ma, Red said as she shouted in the speaker tubes running throughout the ship for all crew to prepare for a pickup. 2. Another woman burst into the room as the ship began to drive down towards the mountain with the faces craved onto it. She was a tall and very elegant-looking brunette with long silky hair that reached all the way to her waist. She wore a pair of skin-tight pink trousers that clung to every curve of her long legs and impressive backside, and a tight white woolen jumper that zipped up the front where it stretched taut across her full but came right the way up to a high turtleneck. Conservative and yet, it suited Elizabeth perfectly. The top of her jumper was pulled taut across an impressively perky pair of full C-cups, not as buxom as Red but still a nice rack. Elizabeth Holmes is the navigations officer of the Scarlet Rapier and also the backup pilot. How are we going to pick them up? Elizabeth asked as she took her seat in the control room. The top of the mountain is flat, all we need to do is fly low enough for them to jump on board, Soraya answers, making all of the women in the room blink. That's crazy, Red shouted as bringing a ship that low while at full speed. What just crazy? This old bird can do it, Kim said as this ship has pulled off some daredevil stunts over the years and this would be a walk in the park. We can't land and let any of the Leaf Ninjas get on aboard the ship. Kelly Clayton reported in by the speaker tubes. She is a very pretty blonde with cute dimples in both cheeks and blonde hair, cut short to avoid getting caught up in machinery as she worked. The blonde mechanic was dressed in a pair of form-fitting pale blue overalls. The zipper front was only zipped halfway and a pair of huge tits swelling up from the open front, revealing a deep cleavage in the round tops of her mind-boggling F-cup jugs. What's going on up there? The voluptuous mechanic asked. We need to get the prince out of there as well as my teammates before the Leaf Ninjas find them, Soraya answers her question. What? Are you lost your mind? Kelly shouted as she began shouting into the speaker tube connecting to the engines of the ship. All right people, let's get this ship at full speed. I want all the boilers at full power. We can't let the prince be captured by the Leaf Ninjas. Roger, Ma. The mechanic crew of the ship shouted to their chief. The ship's steam-powered engine roared with power as the ship descended to the earth below. Back on the ground. Tell me what happened here. The third Hokage asked as he scanned the scene before him. The area around the front gate was in ruins as the blast of the bomb had much of the surrounding area. Leaf Ninjas were crawling around the site putting out the fires the bomb have started and helping the wounded out of the area. They were using shadow clones, Kakashi said as he and Kurenai walked over to him. They still couldn't believe that they had lived through a blast that powerful. The hole it created is several feet deep and wide, damaging the building close to the blast zone. Luckily the buildings around here are stores that are empty. I couldn't see that they weren't real. They were using too much charca to be normal shadow clones. They must be still in the village somewhere, Kurenai said as she would need a couple of days to recover from her wounds. They couldn't have gotten out without. She was lost of words as she saw something big coming through the clouds. The third looked up to see something he had only seen in the major transport ports and cities. An airship is flying downward towards the Hokage mountain shrine. At once he realized what had just happened. We've been tricked. Let's just shot it down, Anko said, appearing onto the scene as she prepared for a fireball jutsu. No, that ship is full of hydrogen gas and if you throw a fireball at it, the ship would burst into flames and crash right on top of the village. The third shouted to her as he started running for the cliff. We got to reach them before they get away with Naruto. What are you guys waiting? Go after him, Kakashi shouted to the ninjas around him. He and Kurenai are too wounded to follow. The ninjas were shook off their hesitation and ran after the Hokage. We can't let the fourth's child be taken, Kakashi, as he wouldn't let his late teacher's child be taken without a fight. On top of the mountain. Here comes, our ride girls, Setsuna said to her teammates. She is holding Naruto close to her chest as he clutched the scroll he had stolen earlier. He hasn't spoken a word after what he found out about the secret that was kept from him his entire life. But she couldn't blame him as to just suddenly find out the reason why he was hated in the village and that his teacher who he thought had like him, hated him. Hold it right there. The gold Delmos turned to find the third Hokage and a large group of ninjas behind him had reached them. Setsuna placed Naruto on the ground gently and ready herself for battle. They came too far to let the leaf win. Naruto, get away from them. Sarutobi shouted to Arashi, but instead of coming towards him, Naruto stepped back, hiding behind the women who had taken him. As he stared into his late friend's son's eyes, he could see that he was more scared of him and his fellow ninjas than the women who are kidnapping him. As you can see, he wants to come with us, Setsuna said as she and the others formed a barrier between the leaf ninjas and their prince. We're not about to give you him just to be killed by a village that hates him. That isn't true, Sarutobi shouted. Then why does the village hates the son of the fourth Hokage who saved this village from the demon fox by sealing it into his only son? Setsuna asked, buying time as the airship drew near. He's my father. Naruto asked, his eyes wide as something else that's been kept from him all of his life was discovered. He wonders what else this village has been hiding from him. Yes, and the scroll you're holding was written by him. It's your birthright to have it, Setsuna said to him. Who are you? Sarutobi shouted at the 5 women who are breaking Naruto apart from the inside. He doesn't know what he'll be able to do even if they manage to get Naruto back, as he will never trust him or anyone else in the village ever again. You find out soon, Kushina said as she snaps her fingers, creating a firewall between them and the leaf ninjas. Sarutobi and the others were forced back by the intense heat of the flames. They couldn't pass as the flames of the fire rose, high in the sky, burning with intense rage. As quickly as it came, it was gone. The 5 strange women and Naruto were gone as the airship flew high in the air after it had flown low enough for Setsuna and the others to jump on board. Naruto! Sarutobi shouted as he could make out his student's son on the ship's deck being carried inside by those women. He knows they wouldn't be able to follow as the leaf doesn't have any airships and following on the ground was out of the question. Arashi, I'm sorry I fail you. Inside the Scarlet Rapier. How is he? Setsuna asked the ship's doctor as she waited outside the medic room of the ship. She and the rest of her team have been waiting around for the doctor to finish examining him. I gave him a sedative and he's resting right now, Carmen Taylor replied, taking a seat. The attractive medical officer of the Scarlet Rapier was dressed in a pair of tight gray trousers that clung to her slim figure and a red top that was quite tight and low-cut and pushed up a swelling cleavage between her firm, ample. Once he wakes up, have him place in my room, Kim said as her room is the best in the ship. I'll watch over him, Setsuna said as she feels she needs to be there for him as she's the one who broke the news about his father to him. Maya, Kushina watch the door. Kim, have the crew look around the ship in groups. There's still a chance that one of the leaf ninjas might have gotten on board. I'll have it done, Kim said as she headed for the control room to give out the orders. Everyone on board knew that if they lose their queen's grandson now, then they won't ever be able to come back home without him. I'll fly down and tell the other teams to head back now, Soraya said as she heads for the deck outside. Good, Setsuna said as she went inside the medic room with Maya and Kushina guarding the door. Inside she sees Naruto resting in one of the beds. His clothes have been removed and sent down to the washers as they needed a good cleaning. Looking down at his sleeping form, she couldn't help but to shed tears for him. Of what kind of life he has forced to live by a village who saw his father as a hero and him as a monster. How could he be still, have the will to live on after everything done to him? By now he should have been killing villagers left to right for how they had treated him. But instead wore that smiling mask he had shown he when they had met in front of the school he went to. Kiko would have been proud of what kind of person you have become, Setsuna said softly as she strokes his forehead. She jerks back as he suddenly grabs a hold of her hand, holding it firmly. He looks into her eyes, his eyes empty of everything but sorrow. She was lost in his eyes as they were so deep and sad. You knew my mother. He finally spoke. She give him a nod as he lets go of her hand. Can you tell me about her? Setsuna gave him a sad smile as she pulls up a chair next to his bed and began telling him everything about his mother that she knew of her and the family Naruto didn't even knew he had. And the legacy she left behind for him to fill as the sole heir to the Queendom of Metal, who is also the leader of the Kanagaker Nin, 3, known better as the Delmos. Neko Turley straightened her slim shoulders back, adjusted her green ponytail over her shoulder and then adjusted her pink skirt and tunic one more time before leaving her new quarters to assemble with the rest of the new weapon assemblers. The young girl merged with the long line of young females quietly rushing to the gathering chamber ahead. Neko brushed a stray lock of green hair out of her lovely face, and then moved into place in the third row of the assembly. The group of girls stood silently at attention, their pink clothing spotless and orderly. A tall woman entered the chamber, and then walked proudly to the podium placed on a raised dais in front of the assembled girls. The woman was dressed in a neat pink business jacket, white blouse, and knee-length skirt. Silky black hose covered her long legs, while her feet were encased in polished black stiletto heels. The older woman slid her right hand over her slicked back raven hair that ended in a tightly coiled ponytail. Good morning, ladies. My name is Eva and I will be your supervisor as you begin your first day on the assembly line. Our manager, Mr. Claw, has placed a great deal of faith in every one of you. I expect you to live up to Mr. Claw's expectations and perform your duties efficiently and quickly. The mid-quarter is almost upon us, we have to meet our production deadlines. Now go to your individual team leaders and make the best tools for our fellow Kanagaker Nin, that you can, said the older woman crisply. The gathered girls broke from their orderly lines to proceed to their work assignments. Neko left the chamber, traveled down several long hallways, and then descended one level to the electronics assembly area. The petite girl approached her team leader, a stern old woman named Sharon. Who are you? Snapped Sharon when she saw Neko approaching. My name is Neko. I'm a grade 6 assembler, replied the green-maned girl quickly. At age 14 Neko had just finished with her classes to become a pink Delmo, in the field of making and repairing the equipments that the upper-ranked Delmos uses in the field. She wasn't that good in healing people while she was taking the medical classes. Grade 6. A beginner, huh? Go over to section 13 to screw on case lids, ordered Sharon with an abrupt raising of her right arm. Neko nodded her acceptance, and then hastily went to the indicated post. She picked up a motorized screwdriver from the small work table in front of her, and then fastened screws into the case holes of the camera casing that rolled in front of her and stopped. Neko barely got all the screws in place before the camera rolled away to her left to be replaced by another unsealed unit. The beautiful young girl screwed the second case into place, slowly learning a style that allowed her to move smoothly from one unit to the next. Dozens, then hundreds of cameras passed beneath Neko, the repetitive procedure making her mind fuzzy and unfocused as she screwed the same holes again and again with her motorized screwdriver. Neko, a voice behind her spoke suddenly, making her jump from the surprise. The woman standing before her has a fair complexion like and knee-length dark brown hair that she tied in a fishtail style with a red tie. The young pink Delmo knew who she was very well, having been her tutor during their time the ninja school. At age 20, Tifa Lockhart was very beautiful. She was 5 feet 6 inches tall, weighed 115 pounds, and had unbelievable measurements. Her 38-inch with a slender well-developed build that accented her bust. Her waist was 22 inches and her cute butt was 36. She wore a gray color suit that did well to hide her lust figure underneath the confines of the leather vest she wore underneath her jacket and her long legs with the loose slacks she wore. She is skilled in martial arts and uses her fists and legs as her weapons. Tifa, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be making out with Cloud? Neko asked. Last that I heard, both of you had joined with the Turks. The name Turks is the unofficial nickname of the Investigation Division of the General Affairs Department of the Delmo Army. They perform covert operations on behalf of the royal family, including espionage, kidnappings and assassinations. They also scout for potential candidates for Delmo's elite gold and silver units, they also serve as bodyguards for the queen. Becoming a member of the Turks is something the very few people have the ability to become, as they are hand-picked by the leader of the Turks, who's been the husband of the current queen. Their numbers are always 13, with the members of the Turks always being couples, so that there's never any lone member who could betray them, as the wives would always be watchful of their husbands. The kunoichis who gain membership must first be married, as the royal family wants the members to have strong bonds and for the husbands to feel the need to defend their new homes. And the fact that all husbands within the top-ranking army and government who have active roles all have special jutsu seals place on them, so that their wives can feel what they're feeling and know where they are at all times. Also meaning that the husbands can't hide anything from their wives, meaning that the husband can't go and cheat on her without her finding out. 1. The chief asked me and the others to gather some of the young new Delmos from each rank for an important assignment. Tifa answers her old trainee, I couldn't think of anyone else. Also Aerith had him for the afternoon, which means he should have made it to headquarters by now if she went easy on him, that is. And yes, both me and Cloud are now members of Turks. Good for you too, Neiko said to her friend, but my shift isn't over yet. Don't worry, Tifa said as she took the drill from her hands, after this you won't be working here anymore. I got you a new position where someone as friendly as you are will be of great help. Before Neiko could say anything else, she was picked up by Tifa, who ran out of the building with Neiko screaming for her to slow down. In the office of the Turks in the castle, an old man with short gray hair wearing a gray suit sat behind a large desk with papers stacked on top of it. He is Hunrock Delmo, the husband of Carline Delmo, the queen of the land of metal, father of Kiko and the grandfather of Naruto. In his 60s, the same as his wife, he's in good condition as he kept his body in good shape over the years, the same with his wife. Before him are the members of the Turks, which he's been in charge of ever since he first came to this land after meeting Carline when she was being escorted through the land of stone where he had lived. He was a laid-back guy even back then when he was still young, which caused Carline to lose her temper when they had gotten into an argument over a card game, which he had won, and using smart comebacks on her didn't help matters either. She and her escort left the following morning after she had ordered her guards to teach him a lesson, which ended with most of the inn destroyed in the following fight. And he had somehow managed to grab Carline's family crest that she kept around her neck. In short, he traveled to the land of metal where he had given back her family crest, and somehow during his time in the castle he had gotten himself married to her, after he found out he had broken into the castle to give back the princess crest, which he had only thought was a staff member of the castle up till then. Alright people, once Tifa gets back we can start, Hunrock said to the current members of the Turks, all dressed in uniformed gray color suits who have all but one had gotten here with their missions completed. Sang Rakas is the stern but polite and calm, second in command of the Turks. He has long, black hair and what appears to be a tilak in the middle of his forehead. Though he is still young, he has been an active member of the Turks for more than 5 years now. His combat skills are in using razor-sharp steel wires, able to cut into flesh and bones like a hot knife through butter. Before he got married he was in charge of managing the castle guards. He had came here looking for a position in the army when his combat skills caught the eye of the queen's husband, who placed him into managing the defensives of the castle. When he finally got married he was soon placed into the Turks. His wife is Elena Rakas, is in her late 20s with short, blonde hair and brown eyes. Before she joined the group, she was a high school student whose father was a teacher in the military academy and whose older sister and husband were members of the Turks, before stepping down from their positions when she and her husband wanted to start a family. Though she resented and wanted no contact with her sister and the other Turks for outperforming her in their status, an encounter with them convinced her to join the group. Elena is naive, impetuous and somewhat overeager, with a loose tongue that sometimes causes her to inadvertently reveal secret information. She takes her job much more seriously than the rest of the team do, and also becomes quite frustrated with their casual, lay-back attitudes. As in her words, how in the world you people, a bunch of slackers and misfits, ever became Turks, I'll never know. But with Hunrock in command of the Turks, he likes how the members act, as they would be too hardcore otherwise. Cloud Lockhart, who had taken his wife's clan name, his appearance is marked by spiky blonde hair, vivid blue eyes. He doesn't look it, but he's really strong as he wields a buster blade in battle. Judging from its relative size compared to the 5 feet 7 inches Cloud, it must be over a foot in width and at least 5 feet in length. And he swings it around like it's a normal size sword. He is also married to 2 wives, as sometimes 2 of the Delmo women would fall for the same guy, and instead of fighting over him they just share him. That way the wives, whenever their husband try to do something they don't like, they can gang up on him, making the punishment ever worse since there's more than one angry wife breathing down the guy's neck. And from the way he's breathing and the sweat still covering his forehead, he must have just came back from one of his workout sessions with his other wife Aerith, who's part of the Pink Delmos since she always did like wearing pink. Cypher Almasi has short blonde hair, green eyes, and a scar across his forehead. He has, like Cloud, recently joined the Delmo clan. Although Cypher is a gifted warrior, he has a stubborn, arrogant, reckless and unpredictable nature. He uses a one-handed sword in battle. He uses fire-type jutsus and combines them with his sword, making the blade red-hot as it cuts into the flesh of his opponents, the red-hot metal burning shut the blood vessels before the blood could start pouring out, making him ideal for covert operations, since when he kills with his sword he doesn't leave any blood behind. His wife is Fujin Almasi, is a young woman with pale skin, short silver hair, and an eye patch. She is incredibly dedicated to her duty in protecting her homeland and to the Turks. Fujin speaks in single-word sentences, which she normally yells. These pronouncements typically summarize her emotional state or declare pejorative statements, for example, rage and lies, or all she says. In battle, Fujin wields a chakram, which she throws at her opponents, and using a return jutsu has it fly back to her after it hits something. Rajan Tilmit is a strong-looking member of the Turks. He and his wife usually team up with Cypher and Fujin. He is a very laid-back and rather slow-witted person. Whenever he and his wife Selfie appears together, Selfie is clearly the one in charge and the one who does all the talking. He always ends his sentences with, "Ya know," and sometimes opts out of explaining difficult things. In battle, Rajan uses a long staff with 2 large battering weights on either end. His wife, who he had taken her family name, Selfie Tilmit, is spunky, hyper, and somewhat childish. Selfie seems misplaced as part of an elite military academy, but she is actually a valuable asset to the party. She is highly talented with machinery. She wields oversized nunchaku in battle and lets her husband tear into the enemy first before she steps in. Despite her girlish demeanor, she also shows flashes of a subtle bloodthirsty streak and an unexpectedly black sense of humor. Reno Treep is a prominent member of the Turks with a lanky physique, unkempt red hair terminating in a long ponytail and 2 symmetrical red marks on his cheekbones, apparently tattoos, though popularly believed to be scars. He is always seen wearing goggles on his forehead, an unzipped suit jacket and an untucked dress shirt. He is cynical and somewhat lazy, but is highly skilled and takes great pride in his work. His fighting skills are obviously far above the level of a normal ninja's, as he can hold his own against a group of gold Delmos. In battle, he wields a retractable metallic rod which can deal electric shocks. His wife is Quistis Treep. While serving as a Turk, is also an instructor at the Ninja Academy when she isn't on a mission. She wears glasses and is in her early 20s but acts more mature than her husband. She is widely admired by the students of the academy she works at while she isn't on missions, and even has a fan club known as the Trapeze. She's one of the top jutsus users in the Land of Metal, making her having to stay back as her husband protects her while doing jutsus. She also uses a whip both in battle and making her slacker husband move his lazy butt into gear. The last 2 members are Rude Go, a tall, naturally bald, dark-skinned man with a slight goatee. He always wears sunglasses and carries spare pairs with him. Rude is rarely seen without his longtime partner, Reno, who they had worked together before meeting their wives, and is rather taciturn, tending to relegate the talking to Reno. Root is a superb physical combatant and prefers to use his fists in battle. He's slow, but he has the strength to smash his way through walls with ease and can take more damage to his body than most others can. His wife is Pain Go, a swordwoman. She has silver hair and red eyes thanks to her clan's bloodline, which allows her see in anything, even in pitch black darkness. She doesn't speak much, only saying what she needs to get her point across. Her skill with the blade is so great that she can deflect anything that is thrown at her with one swing of her sword. Her sword is a long double edge that's colored black to make it harder to be seen at night, giving her the nickname, Blackblade. And standing in front of his desk are 6 young girls, all near his grandson's age. They're what he had sent the Turks out to do when he and his wife received a message of the gold Delmos that were sent to bring their grandson to them, were coming back with him. He would have sent the Turks out with them, but all of them were on other missions, and the ones that weren't on mission weren't allowed to go. His wife had told him that the gold Delmos she had sent would be able to complete the mission, as she had sent their late daughter's personal bodyguard Setsuna, who had taken their daughters running away as hard as they were close as sisters. He knew with her she wouldn't come back without her friend's son with her. The girls in front of him are all from different Delmo ranks. He had looked over the files of each of them when the Turks had reported in their findings. The first is Erica Fontaine of the Green Delmos. A 13-year-old teenager who works as a priestess when she isn't doing work as a Delmo. When she was young, her parents died in a fire accident, and she survives when she accidentally uses her bloodline power of making an energy shield around her. She went off to live in a temple to live as a priestess to learn how to control her bloodline better, as well as starting her schooling in the Ninja Academy. Years had passed by and she made a lot of mistakes in the temple due to her misunderstanding and clumsiness. Some of which is that she once cleans the sanctuary, and in the end, one of the statues was shined into pieces. When she was in charge in plucking out of the grass near the church, she plucks out the flower bed too, and when she was in charge of the cooking, the misfortunes became more miserable after tasting her cooking. Due to the reason, she was actually asked to leave the convent, but due to her misunderstanding and impression of the head priest saying, she stayed there for 6 more months, before she signed up to become a Konigakure nin. She is quite skilled in using bows and crossbows, rarely missing a target. Glycine Bloomer of the Orange Delmos, a rich noble daughter from the Bloomer family. At age 16 she is already showing the signs of what kind of beauty she will be when she gets older. The Bloomer family have always been supporters of the Delmo royal family, both in fighting and business affairs. She inherited her father's massive strength, which she uses, as she's the only one in her class who uses a halberd which she gotten from her father as a gift in battle. Lobelia Carlini, who before she joined the Purple Delmos was a thief. She's actually a former prisoner who was sentenced to 1,000 years and later stated her death statement due to her crimes like stealing jewels and arts and destroying public property. Because 80% of the incidents was her doing, she earns the title for the greatest thief in the land of metal. All before she was 16, and the reason why she was offered to become a Purple Delmo because of her great speed. Her trademark weapons are the chains she keeps in her coat she always wears over her Delmo uniform. Kitauji Hanabi of the Blue Delmos, a very quiet and shy 15-year-old girl. Because that her father, Kitauji Masamiki, made many dealings with the House of Bloomer, Glycine was taking care of her while they were both in school together. They have been friends since then. She's also quite skilled in using a long bow and rarely misses her target. She and Glycine always work as a team, with Glycine attacking head-on and Kitauji giving support fire. Gemini Sunrise of the Yellow Delmos, an outgoing 12-year-old girl. She grew up on the farm her family runs in the grasslands around the city. She learned how to ride a horse before she learned how to walk. She uses a lance in battle, as she always goes out with her horse Butterscotch, making her a very powerful mounted fighter. She and her horse portals the streets of the city, making it easy for her to get through crowded streets sitting on her horse. They move as one, and even Gold Delmos found the skills they show impressive. Then there's Kokelikot Nakura, the youngest at the age of 10 and of the Black Delmos. She used to work and lives with an amusement park. She was always seen collecting leftovers in the town market and treating the amusement park animals as her friends. She takes care of the animals in the pens of the Delmo campus, while taking care of the jobs she's hired for, as the Black Delmos are basically the city's workforce. Since there are way more women in the city than men, all of the young girls in the city all go through school learning the basic skills of a ninja, like a gym class, gaining the ranks of Black Delmos when they finish school, so that all of the women of the city know how to fight, and those who want to can either become normal citizens or become full ninjas. Hi guys, sorry, I'm late. Tifa shouted as she enters the room, making the Turks chuckle as her husband Cloud lowers his head, mumbling to himself, "Got the last member right here." She pulls Neko into the room by her arm, placing her in front of their king. "All of you must be wondering why you all have been brought here today." Hunrock asked them. "Yeah, tell us," Kokelikot shouted as she lifts herself on the desk as she could barely see past the top, making the older women in the room saying how cute she is. "As you must have all heard about, my grandson Naruto is going to be brought back to his homeland, right?" he asked them. All of the girls in front of him nodded, but for Kokelikot was still trying to get a good view of her king. "No, I didn't." "Well, he is," Hunrock said, looking at Kokelikot, who's resting her chin on his desk. "The reason you all have been brought here is that all of you have been handpicked by the Turks, who pick you out of all the young candidates. You all will become my grandson's servants when he arrives, as well as his bodyguards. The reason why older girls weren't picked is because me and my wife want you all to become his friends, which older girls would find it difficult to do since he's still 12 and needs to have kids around his own age." "That sounds fun," Kokelikot shouted out. The other girls all muttered to themselves as what this would mean to them and their families, as Naruto is the first male to be born in this village who carries the same bloodline as all of them do, making him the first prince of the Land of Metal, the first time since the ninja clan and royal family had joined together hundreds of years ago. "What will our jobs be?" Glycine asks as she wonders what her family will think when they find out about this. Her mother will think it's disgraceful for a member of the Bloomer to serve someone, but knowing her grandmother, the head of the family, she'll go for it, as this is the first time that there's a chance that the Bloomer family are able to marry into the royal family, as up till now there hasn't been any males born in either family. Which means with her as his servant, she'll have a position where she can become engaged to the new prince, allowing the two powerful families to join together. "And how much does it pay?" Lobelia asked, wondering what kind of job would need someone of her talents for. "You'll have the same wages as the Gold Delmos, and all of you have talents that the Turk have seen in either defending Naruto from harm or how well you get along with others. Also, to become his friends, is from the reports he has none in the Leaf Village," Hunrock explains. "I will serve your grandson with all my heart," Neko said, as this would mean a lot to her family. "And don't worry, I'm sure we will become friends." Gemini shouted out, wondering if the prince knows how to ride a horse. "I'll do my best," Erica said as she slams her hands on the desk and knocking a paperweight off, making it fly through the air, hitting a cabinet, sending the books in it falling out right on top of Reno and Ruto, who were quickly buried underneath a pile of books. Everyone in the room looked at Erica, who simply replied with an, "Oops. Does that also mean we have to sleep with him?" Kitauji asked nervously. She knows that some of the older girls talk freely about sleeping with guys in the surrounding villages and towns, since they don't have to worry about becoming pregnant until the seals on their stomachs are removed. "No, nothing like that," Hunrock said, waving her off. "You're all way too young for that kind of thing." "Hey, now that's something I wouldn't mind," Reno said as his wife was helping him out from under the pile of books. Pain had already pulled Ruto free from the pile of books. "Oh, really now?" Quistis asks as she looks coldly at him. She tips the cabinet down, making it fall right on top of him, causing him to cry out in pain as it began crushing him. And making sure he wasn't going anywhere, she sat down on it, trapping her husband under it. "I'm not good enough for you." Causing the most of the people in the room to laugh, as this is something that happens between them all the time. Some have gotten the idea that the only reason Quistis had married Reno was that she likes hitting him when he does something stupid, that always happens at least once a week. Selfie, take these girls over to the storage room and show them their new uniforms, Hunrock asked her. All right, follow me girls, Selfie said to the young girls, leading them out of the room. Hunrock, what's the real reason you called us here for? Seng asked, as he knows that this isn't just about finding the right girls to help ease the changes that Naruto will face once he becomes the crown prince. Yes, you're right, this is more than just finding some playmates for my grandson, Hunrock said. I want all of you to head out to the land of fire and recover any documents the Leaf Village has on my daughter and her family. I want nothing left for them to trace back to us or have any information they can use against us. We will have it done, Seng said as all the members smacked their right hand on their chest, except for Reno, who's still pleading with his wife to let him go. By the way, I have been wondering, Yano, Raijin spoke up, if all the past commanders of the Turks have been the husbands of the queen, who will be in command when Naruto becomes king, Yano? Everyone in the room blinked as Raijin has asked a good question for once. Hunrock nodded as he and his wife had talked about this. The next leader of the Turks is whoever becomes his wife. I hope whoever she is, she doesn't act like the women I know, Reno chuckles, making all the women in the room to glare at him. Hold it, Quistis shouted as she saw the female members about to pounce on her husband. If anyone is going to smack him around, it's going to be me. She adjusted her glasses as she took out her whip as her husband Reno sweated as she smiles wickedly down upon him. High above in the sky. There it is, the queendom where your mother was born at, Setsuna said as she's on the deck of the ship as they came within sight of the central city of metal, Ironmount. The city is a walled city, but the city had soon outgrown the walls and had spread out beyond the confines of the wall that separated the old part of the city from the newer city. The city sat on 4 major trade routes of the western lands, making it very rich in trade and political power. There are many waterways and fountains in the city, making it easy to transport objects through the city and gave the city a clean drinking supply. The entire city is made from stonework, making fires rare in the city, and all the streets of the city are cobblestone roads, making it a beautiful city to visit. That's nice, Naruto said softly as he sat in the chair place on the deck for him, doing nothing more than staring at the horizon. Naruto, Setsuna whispered as she doesn't like how Naruto is becoming, as all he does ever since she and her team had taken him from the Leaf Village is sat around doing nothing. She blames herself for what's happening to him, as she was the one who told him everything about his life that was hidden from him all at once, making his already unstable mind at the time more unstable. She only hopes that there's a way to help him break free from the deep depression he's in now. All of the ship's crew are always watching him as he might try to end his life, as he's that far now. We'll be landing shortly, all crew must be inside the ship as we land, Kim's voice said over the loudspeakers. Come on, let's go inside and get you ready to meet your grandparents, Setsuna said as she helps him to his feet. All right, Naruto said as he walks into the ship with Setsuna holding his hand. In his mind he wonders what he's going to be expected to do once he becomes the crown prince of this strange new land. Something about this place makes him feel like he's someplace that makes him feel safe and warm, a place to call home. And if this place is just like the Leaf, well, there's only one choice left for him then. The hidden village of the Leaf was busy as the villagers worked to rebuild their village after the battle that took place a few days ago. The ninjas who had passed the exams to become ninjas were told that they'll have to wait, as many of the older ninjas were too injured to be able to test them whether they start their training to become ninjas or go back to the school. As their teacher Aruka is in intensive care. Most of his body has been broken and the amount of blood lost would have killed him if the ones who did this to him had finished the job instead of leaving him in the forest to die. One of the Anbu had found him and had gotten him to the hospital in time to save his life. And the students were more interested in what the 5 women who caused the damage to the village took, first. They took the forbidden scroll written by the 4th Hokage. Second, the women took Naruto the last place in the class. Is this all we have on them? Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage, said as the Anbu in his office gave him the report on the women who took Naruto from the village. Yes, this is all we managed to gather on them, the Anbu said as he handed the Hokage the folder containing all of the information on the women who were posing as travelers looking of an inn to rest at. What of the carriage and the horses they use? The third asked. There's nothing to identify where the carriage came from. Judging from the makeup of the carriage, it's one of the new armor-plated carriages that are made to transport important people. The horses are of a prime breed, they have been bred for speed and stamina. The horse breeders are already clamoring to get the horses as they never seen such prime-bred horses outside of a royal court before. Whoever these women are, they're well funded as those horses alone are Roth, 10 years pay for an Anbu like me, the ninja said. 1. Since they didn't mind losing those horses, it can only mean that whoever sent them didn't minded losing such an expensive investment in the time and effort it takes to breed them. Plus the airship, which alone if it was built here would bankrupt us just to have it built, let alone the cost of maintaining it, means that they have very deep pockets, Sarutobi said as he sat back in his chair. How's Aruka doing? He's still recovering from his injuries he received from those women. I still don't understand why they didn't kill him when they had the chance instead of leaving him there, the ninja asked no one. They wanted him to die alone in the forest after hearing what he felt about Naruto. The third answered his question. The women seem to care deeply about Naruto's well-being. That's the reason why they didn't kill him then and there, so he could die a slow death. The door of his office opened as his female secretary came in. Hokage, Jiraiya and Tsunade have arrived. All right, send them in, Sarutobi said as he had sent messengers to find his two students. Since they have been traveling around, they might be able to shed some light on the clues they managed to find on the women who took Minato's son from his village. He waves the two Anbu in the office to leave him alone so he could talk to his two students alone. Walking into the office is a white-hair pervert and a buxom blonde who may be in her 50s but looks thanks to a jutsu around 20-something. We came as soon as we heard about the attack, Tsunade said as she and her fellow students step in front of their old teacher. Naruto has been taken by women who are as stacked as Tsunade here. Jiraiya asked as he heard about how stacked the women are from the male ninjas in the village. There isn't time for you to act like yourself now, Sarutobi said to his student as he slides the folder with the information on the women in front of the two. I need you two to look over this and see if you can narrow down who the women are working for. You have been around, maybe you'll be able to figure out the clues we found on them. Alright, we give it a shot, Tsunade said looking over the photos in the folder. Wow, they do have the same kind of busty built old Flatchist has here now, Jiraiya said looking over the photos that were taken of the women during the chase. He got a punch in his gut by Tsunade, who doesn't like to be reminded what she was built like when she was younger. 2. Wait a moment here, Tsunade said as she looks closely at the photos of the women. I think I know where they came from. They remind me of the Delmos of the Land of Metal. The Kanegakure Nin, the third said, recalling the last time he had a personal encounter with one of the women from the Land of Metal. That would explain a lot about how they were able to use so many powerful jutsus without running out of charka. That's the reason why I rarely go to the Lands of Metal, Jiraiya spoke up. They might dress in revealing outfits, but they seem to find someone peeking on them to be very offending, and you have no idea how many powerful jutsus they know. With the bloodline they all have, they never run out of energy. Gathering energy from their surroundings makes them very powerful, Tsunade adds. Hidden villages all over have been trying to get the Delmo bloodline into one of their clans for generations now. Since they only have female children meant that the villages couldn't get a male of the Delmos to sleep with a couple of women of a clan. And the fact that they all have a seal on them that doesn't allow them to bear a child till after it's removed by their family means that no hidden village has ever been able to get the Delmo bloodline into their clan. Why would they want to kidnap Naruto, and how did they know that the Forbidden Scroll was written by Minato? Sarutobi asked his two old students. Well, besides us, the only one that knew about the scroll was his wife, since he was working on it at home. She was carrying Naruto at the time, Jiraiya said, remembering back to 12 years ago before the nine-tailed fox came to the village. You don't think that Kiko leaked that information, do you? Tsunade asked out loud. About 2 months ago her diary she kept that was kept in the file room went missing, Sarutobi said. She had started writing in that book once she learned she wouldn't be able to go out and fight with Minato till she gives birth to their child. But that still doesn't explains why they took Naruto, Jiraiya said as he looks at the photos of the women that took him. Kiko couldn't have been one of the Delmos since she didn't have the childless seal on her and she gave birth to a male child, which everyone who knows about Delmos they can only have female children. But maybe she knew someone there, Tsunade suggested. That would explain why she fights like one of them, Jiraiya said as he remembers the fights she and Minato used to have that would quickly become a street fight against the couple as they always love fighting and showing how far they came along in their training to each other. I should look over the files on her, maybe there's a clue in them, Sarutobi said as Kiko only told Minato about her life after she had been beaten by him. She had left Naruto a necklace with a strange chest design on the locket made of a mix of gold and silver along with her other belongings that are all being kept inside the file room. He called his secretary to get the box holding the belongings of the fourth Hokage and his late wife to his office. In the archives. You think that the file room would have been better kept than this, Quista said as she looks through the boxes looking for the box they came for. They had sneaked into the archive an hour ago and started looking through all of the boxes that contain the belongings of the late Princess Kiko and her late husband. The room is filled with file cabinets and wooden boxes containing files and belongings of the residents of the hidden village. The entire fifth floor of the Hokage Tower is nothing more than a file room to hold all of the documents that are on the residents, both past and present. The room therein is the one that holds the belongings of the past Hokages as well as some of the powerful clans of the village. They should be way in the back somewhere, Pain said as she hands another box to her husband. I just wish that they put the boxes by data or clan than just stacking them like this, Rudo said as he lifts several boxes in his arms out of the way as his wife and Quista stack more boxes on top of each other. I found it, Reno shouted as he jumps down from the ladder holding a wooden chest in his arms. Finally, Rudo said as he opens the large armor-plated briefcase they had brought along to hold the contents of the box they came for. Wait, let's make sure that it's the real thing, Quista said as she opens the box her husband is holding up for her. Can you hurry, it's heavy, Reno said as he wants to set the box down. Quite, or I bring out the whip again, she said back, making her husband steady himself as he holds the box as his wife looks over the things inside of it. All right, dump it, Quista said as they have the right box. Reno nods as he empties the contents of the box into the briefcase. Finally we can go, Pain said as she turns to leave when the door leading out opens and a surprise file clerk saw the people in the room. Before he could react, Pain crossed the room in a heartbeat, hitting him in his gut with the butt of her sword. Looking outside of the room, Pain cursed as she saw several clerks running off shouting for help. We got to get out of here now. Hit the fire alarm, it will confuse them, Quistis shouts as most of the people would only think there's a fire, not thieves in the building. On it, Pain shouts as she hits the fire alarm and joins the others as they made their escape as the fire system activates, the fire system turning on, spraying the floors with water, giving the four Turks the cover they need to escape. Pushing past the crowds of panicking people in the building, they got out to a fire escape and climbed down it into one of the alleyways as the sounds of the fire wagon bells came closer. Rudo carried the case as they ran for their escape route out of the city when several shurikens struck in front of them. Looking up, they saw a busty blonde and a silver-hair man jumping down from a window of the tower. What are the Turks doing here? Jiraiya asked as he recognized the suits the four people in front of them are wearing. He heard about the deep ops of the land of metal under the direct command of the royal family. In truth, he had only heard rumors about them as they rarely did any missions in the eastern lands where they're at now. I heard that you guys stick to the western lands. What are you guys doing here in the east? Tsunade said as she glares at the four Turk members. Well, we came here to get something and we're not going to leave without it, Pain said as she readies her sword for battle. Reno, Rudo, you two get out of here. Me and Pain will handle these two weaklings, Quistis said, taking out her whip. Weak. Both of the third Hokage old students said at the same time. Yes, weak, Pain said as her and Quistis' husbands ran down the alleyway, carrying the important documents they came here to get. Everyone in the West knows that the countries in the eastern lands are the tamest compared to the lands to the west of here. Quistis smiles as she adjusts her glasses. 3. Besides, with women like us around, the other countries had to get stronger to keep up with us, Pain said as she and Quistis charge at the two-leaf ninjas. Tsunade pushed Jiraiya back as she blocks the sword strike from Pain with a kunai and the whip crack from Quistis by grabbing it with her hand. Go get those guys, Jiraiya. She shouts to her teammate. I hold them back. Be careful, he shouts, jumping up the building's sides till he reached the top and ran by rooftop after the two male Turks. You really think you can hold us for long? Pain smiles as she began forcing Tsunade back as she puts more charka into her body, more than the leaf ninja could ever do. You have no idea who you're dealing with here, Tsunade shouts as she jumps back, breaking the weapon lock. Neither do you, Quistis said as she began doing hand size for a powerful jutsu as Pain began attacking the leaf ninja again, keeping her away from her teammate. Tsunade fought off the sword strikes against her, but she couldn't keep it up for long as she has to pump so much charka into her body just to keep up with the red-eye woman. The way she moved was like the sword was a part of her body. Pain, seeing Quistis done with the jutsu, waiting for her to stop playing around, she evades Tsunade kunai and strikes her in the back of her kneecaps, making her fall to her knees with the back of her sword. The last thing Tsunade saw was the blonde woman with glasses throwing a jutsu at her. The alleyway soon glowed brightly as a blue light suddenly flashed, following a female scream. A couple of blocks away. You think it was wise to just leave them there? Rudo asks as he carries the case. No, but if we didn't, you know what would have happened to us, Reno said as he takes out his rod, preparing to fight his way out. Hold it right there, someone shouted as several ninjas surrounded them. Raijin burst out from one of the buildings through a wall, swinging his staff at the ninjas in front of Reno and Rudo, knocking them out of the way. Get going, Yano. The leaf ninjas threw their shurikens at the large man in the gray suit, but they were batted away by Selfie as she joins her husband, spinning her oversized nunchaku, making a shield to protect her husband from the attack. Leave this to us, we'll join you guys later. Thanks for the help, Reno shouts as he and Rudo ran through the opening their teammate made for them. Not a problem, Selfie smirks as she began attacking the leaf ninjas, following her husband's lead as he smashed his way through the ranks of the ninjas. Spinning his staff at a high speed, Raijin deflects the shurikens thrown at him as he powers his way through. None of the ninjas could get close to him, despite his size, as he is very agile and could quickly turn around facing anyone who dares to attack him. Selfie raises her nunchakus up by the handles, making them glow as she charges a lightning jutsu with them. She fires the bolt into the sky, making the lightning bolt broke into dozens of lightning bolts, striking down all of the ninjas in the area. That was quick, Yano, Raijin said as he headbutts the last standing ninja, knocking her out, breaking her mask as he did in two. Yeah, I thought these guys would be stronger, Selfie said as she looks at the fallen bodies of the leaf ninjas. In another part of the city. Here comes those two slackers now, Cypher said as he and his wife Fujin sat at a tea shop, and there's a group of high-level Anbu coming along also. Should we fight them? Fight, Fujin said, taking a phase. Now. Let's do it then, Cypher said as he sat up, drawing out his sword. He and his wife step into the middle of the road as Reno and Rudo ran past, standing in the way of the ninjas who are giving chase. Get out of the way. Anko yells as she and the others in her group halt as the couple blocks them from following. Come, Fujin said as she grips her chakram tightly. You're going to fight all of us? Shikaku Nara asked as he and his old teammate Inoichi Yamanaka were called out of retirement, as so many of the village ninjas are still recovering from their wounds they took during the kidnapping of Naruto. Like their other teammate Choza Akamichi, who's recovering from the burns he received from the fire dragon that slammed into him. Let's show these weaklings our power, Cypher smiles as he gathers energy in his hand, making the leaf ninja's eyes widen as they could see the charka being gathered in his outstretched arm. When he gathered enough, he fires a fireball into the crowd of ninjas, making them jump back as the flaming ball explodes. Destroy. Fujin yells as she throws her chakram after her husband's fireball. The throwing weapon began spinning, gathering air, making the flaming sparks left over from the blast to gather around it, feeding the flames, making them grow into a flaming tornado. They combine their attacks. Inoichi yells as he sees what the two strangers are doing. But there was little he could do, as the woman with the eye patch is making hand size, controlling the fire tornado, making it go after the ninjas. I'll take care of you. Enko yells as she aims for the person controlling the tornado. But the guy suddenly appears in front of her, blocking her kunai with his long sword. Sorry, but you're going to have to deal with me first. Cypher smirks as he shoves his hand in Enko's face and blasts her with a point-blank fireball, sending her flying backwards through a window of a store. Protect. Fujin shouts out to her husband as she controls the tornado, making the ninjas run for cover as the flaming wind raise the heat levels of the area, making the houses nearby start to burn. I always do. Cypher smirks, enjoying the fireworks his wife is making out of the buildings. Back to the two male Turks members. Reno, are we almost there yet? Rudo asks as he has the briefcase in his arms as he ran through the panicking streets. Almost there. Reno shouts back to her partner. Hold it right there. Jiraiya shouts as he and the other top Anbu members jump in front of them. Great, now we got to fight, Reno said as he extends his rod out to its full length. Can you handle this? We can't lose it now, Rudo said as he knows if he lets go of the briefcase, one of the Leaf ninjas would take it. What, and have all of the fun for myself? Reno asks as he smirks at the assembled Leaf shinobis. You're not going anywhere, Sarutobi said, appearing behind the two Turks. What does the land of metal want with Naruto? Sorry, but we're under orders not to tell you anything, Rudo said as he turns to face the Hokage while Reno keeps his eyes to the front. If we did, our wives are going to make anything you guys can think of look like a spa treatment, Reno said as he grips his rod. Besides, we're right where we want to be, Rudo said as Reno drops a small ball he held in his hands, making a blinding flash of light, and Rudo throws the briefcase high into the air. Someone catch it, Sarutobi shouts out as he locks his eyes onto the case as it hovers in the air. But before anyone could move, something jerks the case like it's being pulled through the air by something. Everyone's eyes are locked onto the case as it flies into the hands of a man with long dark hair. Besides him is a short-haired blonde woman, both standing on top of a nearby building. I'll take this if you don't mind. You two handle these guys, the blonde woman said as both of them disappear from sight. You're not getting away, Sarutobi shouts as he runs after them. Hokage. One of the masked Anbu shouted and was about to follow when the building the Hokage had used as a jump point to follow the two with the briefcase collapses as a spiky blonde hair man carrying a huge buster sword stood on the ruins of the building with a woman with long brown hair. Sorry, but you guys aren't going to be helping him, Tifa said as she pulls on her fighting gloves that has metal knuckles on them. You think you can stop all us? One of the ninjas shouted as he jumps at the pair. The spiky hair man slaps the ninja out of the way with a swing of his massive sword, using the flat side of the sword like a bat. Yes, we do, Cloud said as he rested his large, heavy sword in his shoulder. You guys have it so easy here in the East, Tifa smirks. You guys never had to deal with the kind of power we have to face regularly on the West, Reno smiles as he charges up his rod. And that's because the land of metal acts like a buffer zone between the West and the East, Rudo said, cracking his knuckles. Now let's show you guys how far you are from us in terms of power. Rudo grabs a lamp pole and rips it out of the ground and began swinging it at the Leaf ninjas, their surprise at the speed he's able to swing the long and heavy metal pole. He breaks open a hydrant and the torrent of water knocks a couple of ninjas down, filling the street with water. Reno smiles as he charges up his electric to full power and plunge it into the puddle of water, giving the ninjas stand on the water a shock of their lives. Jiraiya runs to help but was stopped as Cloud appears in front of him. He barely blocks the Buster sword with a kunai as Cloud, using the heavier weapon, force the pervert ninja back with a shove of his massive weapon. How the heck can you swing something like that and keep it up? Jiraiya asked as someone of his build and size shouldn't be able to swing that super heavy weapon around like that. Well, he does has a lot of endurance training thanks to me and Aerith. Tifa smiles wickedly as she slams her fist into the face of an Anbu, breaking his mask in two. She grabs the leg of another who had big eyebrows as he tried kicking her and began swinging him around, slamming his body into the bodies of his fellow ninjas. I heard that Delmo women sometimes share a man when two of them fall of him, Jiraiya said as he throws shurikens at Cloud, who blocks them all with his sword. I always thought that those were just tall tales guys tell of the women there. I know guys who have dozens of wives, Cloud said as he remembers from the reports he read on the Leaf Village ninjas that Jiraiya is a big-time pervert. As he had expected, the pervert froze as he thought about what a single guy can do with a group of women, allowing him to swing his sword, hitting Jiraiya with the flat side of his sword, sending him slamming into the side of a building, and before he could recover, Cloud slams into him with the butt of his sword, making a hole as both of their bodies broke through it. On top of the hospital. They're late again, Elena said as she stares at her pocket watch. They'll be here, Seng said to his wife as they waited for their ride as well, for the others to handle the people they're fighting and get to where they are before they're left behind. You're not leaving this time, Sarutobi shouted as he tore off his robes, revealing his ninja suit he wore under it. Trying to make up for lost time are we now? Seng said to the Hokage of the Leaf. Naruto has chosen to come with us. Or are you forgetting the look he gave you when you tried to take him back? Elena reminded him. He's in the land of metal right now and there's no way we're going to let you guys use him or hurt him ever again. Use him, Sarutobi shouted, you're the one who's turning him against his village. I'm going to enjoy it when Naruto finally decides to make war on this village, Elena smirks. Make war on the Leaf? Sarutobi said, puzzled by her words. Dear, you did it again, Seng said, reminding her about her habit of leaking information out like that. So the old man is the Hokage of this village, Quistis said as she and the other members of Turks appeared behind Sarutobi. How strong were the ones you were fighting? Elena asked them. They're still weak from the damage Setsuna and her team made when they were escaping, Selfie laughed as she made sure to show them the power of the Delmo elites. Yeah, no, her husband Raijin agreeing with her. Weak. Fujin simply stated. Tell me, why does the Queen of Metal is doing this? What does she wants with Naruto? Sarutobi growls as he knows he's no match for all of them. Well, you did try to live up to the promise you made to his father to look after him after all. But you could have done better, much better, Seng said. I'll tell you this much. Naruto is the first male to ever be born with the bloodline of the Delmo flowing through his veins. His bloodline ability is laying dormant for now, only a simple matter of waking it up. Kiko was from metal then, Sarutobi said as he remembers when she first found out she was carrying a boy and how much she and cried in joy of finding out. Because she's carrying the first male to ever be born in her ninja clan's bloodline. Elena was about to say something when Seng cups her mouth. Now dear, if you can't keep it to yourself, don't say anything at all. Elena murmured as she kept her mouth shut. Here's our ride, Tifa said as she and the others grab onto the cable line sweeping through the air as a small, fast airship flew over the village. Sarutobi could do nothing but watch as the Turks were being pulled up into the airship, hanging onto the cable lines already out of range. At least he now knows why the Queen of Metal had ordered her ninjas to take Naruto by any means. For years, hidden villages have been trying to get the bloodline of the Delmos into their villages. Because of the seal that's placed on the young women, making it impossible for them to become with child while having the seal on them, since they can only have female children, it made it hard for any village to get their bloodline into one of their clans. But with a male Delmo, it would be a simple matter of having him sleep with as many women possible to spread the bloodline through a village. It's no wonder they wanted Naruto so much, as he could single-handedly spread their well-protected bloodline throughout a village. Once it becomes common knowledge that any child of his would have the bloodline power to gather charka from their surroundings. All of the clans of the village would send one of their young girls to seduce him to make Naruto a part of their clan. Any clan of the village that would have managed to get Naruto to marry into it would quickly become the most powerful clan of the village. So that's why you wanted the village to see Naruto as a hero, Sarutobi said sadly to himself. Naruto would have been the greatest gift to the village that you died to protect. Through him would have given us an entire generation with the bloodline of the Delmos. I'm sorry for this village for failing your test, my old friend.